In part one of episode Bad Breakups, I am reflecting on grieving a breakup as someone with an anxious attachment style, navigating the emotional roller coaster from denial to acceptance. I explore the anxious avoidant dynamic, how unresolved trauma shape attraction, and the importance of healing by cutting contact and avoiding rebounds. Through personal experiences, I share lessons on love, growth, and the belief that happiness evolves beyond heartbreak. And in part two, I'm going to dive even deeper. Welcome to Becoming Secure with Mike's Mindset. Here is why it's really hard for the anxious person to move on, because the avoidant will not make it any easy on them. The avoidant don't want to cut contact either. They want you to stay exactly where they can control you. They will give you just enough to keep you around, just to frustrate the shit out of you when you get to the too clingy again, and repeat the cycle over and over. The avoidant has unhealed trauma as well, and they will continue to repeat that pattern until they too heal themselves. No one is more terrified of commitment than the avoidant. They value their perceived freedom more than anything in the world. Chances are they learned at a young age that love ends. I have mentioned before that these are the ones who love to tell you that 50% of marriages ends in divorce. Where I like to counter with, what did the other 50% do to be successful? For an avoidantly attached individual, committing to a relationship can be challenging, but entirely possible with self-awareness and effort. The key for them is to understand their attachment style and actively work towards healthy emotional intimacy. One of my more recent exes and I have been on and again, off again for 3 years. Let me give you a fantastic example of what an unhealed, anxious person will do when falling in love. He told me from the get-go that he didn't want to get married, to have kids. Heck, he didn't even want to have a girlfriend. What did I do about that information? I created a narrative in my head that this one time he would meet the right person, being me, and change his mind once he falls in love too. A secure person would have taken that information and said, thank you, no thank you, and moved on. But not me. I hoped that he would change his mind. That being said, it's not like it was completely delusional and that he was trying to push me away or anything. He for sure kept me on like a tight enough leash to not lose me by giving me just enough for me to stick around. After 1 year of seeing each other, we became officially together because at some point I had to set a boundary and come to my senses. And at this time, we actually did get back together and it was official, but I was clear on my demands. So what I did was to create a little list where I wrote down exactly what I wanted from a relationship, and it included marriage and family eventually. And he did see that list and said that he doesn't know if he wanted some of this now, but maybe, he didn't want to say that it would never gonna happen, but he wasn't definitely not gonna say that it would. So you see, it's not that cut and dry. The hope is very real. And when you really do not want to go through a breakup, the hope is everything you place your conviction on. During this 1.5 years where we were actually a committed couple, we had an amazing time together. I have some of my favorite memories with him, and I will cherish everything he taught me. I want to emphasize that it's not like avoidantly attached people are bad people. They just struggle with commitment and intimacy. It's not easy for them to see the value in committed relationship. The avoidants are the ones who hate Valentine's Day and stuff like that. They believe that it's a corporate holiday where businesses are thriving and they don't want to support that. As opposed to looking at it for what it's meant to be, a day to celebrate, love, and embrace the partner that they have. Because newsflash, most individuals, most particularly women, love Valentine's Day. I mean, heck, women love Valentine's Day so much that they created Galentine's Day so they could have an extra day to love a little extra, but with just their girlfriends. Yeah, so celebrate Valentine's Day. Girls love that shit. And looking from a bird's eye view to you Valentine's Day haters, isn't it much better to make your partner a little bit extra happy that day, go on a date, and probably most certainly get what you want out of it too, than to act like a child who, God forbid, have to spend money on someone you love? Are you really that hateful and greedy? Really think about this. Isn't it worth it to see the look on their face when they light up out of happiness for the acknowledgement they experience when you show up for them on Valentine's Day? As much as this relationship tore me to pieces, it is also the relationship I learned the absolute most about myself in, my traumas, and what wasn't healed within me. I will be forever grateful for that blessing. And I will also cherish the moments we had together, because after all, they were incredible. As a person, he's a ball of joy, funny as hell, and incredibly smart, and I got to enjoy all of that. Mostly I've just been petty and mad because I didn't get to go all the way with him because he identified as some anti-committal person, also called avoidantly attached. He had no intention of changing that though, so I had no choice but to cut contact completely and move on. And this was like a little bit over a year ago, and boy, I am happy that I did that because what came next was a blessing I never saw coming and I never would have been without. Remember my summer fling from Greece? Oh, boy, oh boy. That was beyond what I would ever comprehend. I had no idea it would be so much better when I was going through it. Going through the breakup, I couldn't picture myself with anyone else. And in the waiting time, I was suffering and healing a lot. And even though he and I are no longer an item, I am so grateful I got to experience that and know that it gets better every time. I am so excited to see what's next and hopefully last. As anxiously attached individuals, we are experts at putting them before us. We are experts at creating a narrative where they are the end goal. Essentially, we stop our own growth because healing is painful. I would often find myself asking the universe or God why they couldn't just realize how amazing love is, how great marriage is, and how beautiful blessing it is to build a family together. It wasn't until recently I stopped myself mid-prayer and instead asked, what is it that I can learn from this? What is it that I don't see as I am trying to change the outcome? Immediately a shift happened within me. It's if my shoulders got lighter and the lump in my gut disappeared. For the first time ever, I wasn't so stuck on changing the outcome because at this point, pain isn't that scary anymore. Sure, it's uncomfortable, but I know how to manage it now, so I'm not afraid of it. I've seen it before. It's a familiar territory. I know how to navigate. At this point, I can ugly cry on a plane, at the airport, at work, in the shower, while hanging out with my friends, you name it. Releasing the pain doesn't scare me anymore. I am not intimidated and I am not shameful. And I am not ashamed of addressing what I am feeling and going through. I have 4 relationships that I've referred to in my life. This is because these were long-term and had a significant impact on me. The worst case of push and pull was the 3rd one, the one I talked about in this episode. The military man was the 2nd, and the 1st and the last one just kind of went well. The 1st ended as it should, with the mutual understanding that it had come to an end, and we didn't see it doing with each other for the long haul. It was relatively drama-free for me. The last one probably will always be my favorite because it was the first time being in a relationship where I really loved myself. I had self-respect. I communicated well. I was myself. I wasn't afraid of addressing conflict. And essentially, I was acting really secure. We did such a good job of just navigating this unfamiliar territory, but we were so curious about each other. So we just kind of made it work. Like, I think we were so confident that it was a safe space to be vulnerable because we just immediately created that. So it was a really safe space to be in. It was one of the happiest because I was in a good place with myself. And although it ended a few months ago, the circumstances were understandable, so it kind of had to be that way. But we had a fantastic summer fling kind of thing where we ultimately dated for 6 months. And yeah, it was perfect. He was incredible. And does it hurt? And am I still grieving? Yeah, for sure. But at least I am doing the grieving and allowing space for the right person to show up when the time is right. And yes, even though this was relatively drama-free, I still had to cut contact in this situation as well because I know it's going to help me move on faster. Because I definitely don't want to spend energy in a place where I'm not the priority and we're not headed into the direction that I'm expecting us to. I am so over casualties and situationships. Like, I want someone to commit to me at this point. So That's what I'm going to strive for, even if it means taking 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards once in a while. Let me provide you with one piece of advice. If you don't heal, you'll continue to deal. You'll keep attracting the frequency you're on and repeat the same cycle in a new person. I'm not saying it's a waste of time, because we all got something beautiful out of each of these relationships, and they all teach us something. But the sooner we can actually establish what we want in life, we'll quit wasting our own and other people's times. If you know you don't want a partner, maybe don't seek them out. Just because you rest yourself on the fact that you have communicated clearly and set expectations, and it's the other person's responsibility to choose accordingly, you are not relieved from the responsibility of the impact it has on them. Just because you don't mean to hurt someone doesn't mean you're not a selfish asshole that is in fact hurting people and using it for your own quick dopamine hit and as an ego-pleasing kind of thing. If you're choosing the solo life, then do it solo and stand by that. I guess that's my opinion. I might come from a very, very unrealistic place, because that's just not how things are. And realistically, I understand that. But I just guess I wish that more people took a little bit more responsibility of the fact that we are all emotional beings, especially women, and we are going to take things personally, and we're going to take things to heart and be emotional about things. And I do believe that men can take a little bit more responsibility in how to help navigate that in a graceful way, like create a safe space for that to be the case, and maybe not use kind of like this emotional threat, because we are so tolerant and we will stand in a lot of things. And I think that kindness will be abused sometimes. And we are willing to stay way longer because we put other people before us. And therefore, we sometimes lose in these situations because we're just able to endure so much. And they take advantage of that. And I don't think they're doing it to be evil, but they're doing it because they thrive in it too. They like it. They enjoy what you provide because you represent goodness in many ways. So for them, it's a very nice place to be because you too are a really good person. And I know this is true about me. I know that my exes think that I'm great, and I think they would love to be in contact and have conversations just because of the joy of having these connections, because we are good people, you know? And but sometimes it just doesn't work out well, and it's a slippery slope, and it's a hard space to navigate, but a healthy place to grow from nonetheless. On the other hand, though, if you know you want to get married and have kids, don't ever tell yourself that they'll change their mind, because they won't. The only time, and I am not saying this as a certainty, but the fact is that the only time the person will potentially change their mind is when they no longer have access to you. It's a cliche, I know, but it's true. When you stand up for yourself, prove self-respect, and walk away from them, maybe then they will realize that maybe then they will realize what they had and change their mind, because they can actively feel the impact and the void when it's gone, and know that that's a part that they want to choose to prioritize having in their lives. But they have to actually recognize this void. It is a cliche with the whole, like, you don't know what you have until it's gone. But more often than not, they will not come back. Believe what they say and trust that they are being honest with both you and themselves when they say that they don't want it. Don't think that you know better than them. And don't let anyone string you along either. But if you do, take accountability for all the roller coasters of emotions that you'll have to deal with as a result of that choice. Wouldn't it be nice though if people just did this? Like, actually dove in and healed more. I just believe more people would commit. I would hope so, because I think that the more we can get introspective and really understand ourselves, it's easier for us to be true to ourselves, because we feel some sense of comfort in our own strength, and therefore it doesn't feel so intimidating to speak up and tell someone what we want. And I think in the process of speaking out loud what we want, we get closer to finding that. But Sometimes we have to go through all of these different experiences to actually establish and narrow it down to what it is that we truly want. It's kind of like the elimination process a little bit. At least that's a healthy way of looking at it, so it doesn't feel like a waste of time, because we can't do anything about what has happened. The past is going to be there, and that time is gone. We don't get that back. So we might as well take everything that is possibly positive from that situation, and really, really learn from that and find what it is that we truly want in that process, and also cherish the experience, because we are all human beings, like on a human experience journey, and we just cross paths with people, and sometimes they just leave a massive mark, and it's hard for everyone involved to break out of. But yeah, I recognize that we live in a world where we normalize casual sex, and although I hate it, although I've even taken advantage of it for myself and to my own detriment, but although I recognize that this is true for everyone and that a lot of people are gonna want to cancel me for this, I stand by the fact that I believe sex is best when it's with someone you love and choose, and that you only really embrace and experience that when you dare to heal and give yourself to someone. Because when you love yourself, you're comfortable with your body and your function and who you are and what you like and what you dislike, and you don't have a problem communicating that with your partner, and therefore you create a secure connection. Because if you haven't kind of experienced with yourself a little bit and understood yourself and your bodily autonomy and the way your mind works and the way you can talk yourself in and out of things, or the power of the mind, essentially, if you haven't gotten to know that, like, you're going to be self-conscious in vulnerable situations, such as like when it's intimate, and I think that's something very important to consider. To summarize, establish what you want. When you know what that is, stay on that path. Take accountability for acknowledging where you are. It's your responsibility alone to get to where you want. It's okay to take time and be in accord with yourself. Just stay on the path, because you will be better for it. And if you're an avoidant and want to heal, here are some things that you can do according to attachment theory. When someone with an avoidant attachment style wants to commit to a relationship, they need to focus on building self-awareness. This means recognizing their patterns, like pulling away during emotional moments and understanding their triggers. They should work on communicating openly with their partner, sharing their fears and needs, and clarifying boundaries to create a sense of safety, because women need safety. Developing comfort with vulnerability is crucial. Starting small by opening up bit by bit, and learning that intimacy is about mutual support, not losing independence. Because women aren't trying to take away your independence. We don't want you to lose who you are or not spend time doing what you are passionate about, but we want to be involved in the process, not 24/7, but to some degree. We are also able to stand on our 2 feet and have our own interests as well. We're really capable of that, but we want someone to do life together with, someone to talk about all of these things and to go on the highs, on the lows together with, and be inspired and be creative. Emotional regulation can also help. Practicing mindfulness, journaling, at least that can release anxiety and challenge the urge to want to withdraw. When asking if it's truly aligned with their goals for a meaningful connection, you should focus on trust-building behaviors like consistency, reliability, doing what you say you're going to do, while staying present and not letting past experiences affect the relationship. Therapy can be a great tool to unpack deeper fears and create healthier commitments and healthier habits. It's also important to frame commitment as an opportunity for mutual growth rather than a threat, because that's what I said, we want to be on this path together. And to celebrate even the smallest progress along the way. And women are great cheerleaders, which is why you're going to want to have them in your life. Just notice how much more fruitful your life is when you're surrounded by women. Lastly, understanding that your partner's attachment needs And finding ways to bridge that gap can foster a stronger and more secure bond because you're accomplishing something together. It is chasing that sense of accomplishment. And when you do it with a partner, it is even more like, I don't know, it just feels really good. I believe in you. You got this. I know it's scary, but man, it's going to be worth it. And you'll respect yourself so much more for it because you got so freaking brave for doing that shit, because that's not an easy path. But this is also a freaking huge part about being a man, be resilient, and be resilient and solution minded in areas that aren't always practical, but emotional. Like, no one is as solution minded as men are. No one wants to fix a problem more than men. But when are you going to just fix that broken wound, Just navigate the emotional space as much as the practical space. Because my past experience was heartbreaking, I kept expecting that if a relationship ever ended again, it would be the worst pain I ever felt, because that was my association with that occasion. Because I've manifested a lot in my life, I live in a massive amount of those prayers right now, and it suddenly clicked. Manifestation works, and I can manifest a healthier departure from a relationship. When I feel myself latching on in a dynamic these days, I try to use this mantra: God, show me why it wouldn't work. What started happening when I said, God, show me why it wouldn't work, was that I noticed things about them that I disliked. And I had to determine if it's a deal breaker or not. Because I know that when you realize that you're actually trying to change this person, you don't love them for exactly who they are today. You love their potential through your lens of who they might be. They might never become that person, and you might resent them for it. There were times I thought that the trivial things could pass and I'll get used to it. But when I experienced the waving red flags, I saw the bigger pictures. I was able to see the major deal breakers that simply wouldn't grow on me, and I became less attracted and attached to them. Not because they're not fantastic men in their own way, but because my needs wouldn't be met in this dynamic, and that is my main priority right now. I feel myself detaching in these moments, and it's then I realized that I could manifest a healthy departure from a relationship, one that wasn't heartbreaking and filled with deep wounded pain. One where two individuals love each other, but simply aren't the one for each other. And maybe one day I wouldn't have to depart again, because someone out there is the one for me. I will take this opportunity to thank all of my exes. I know it's silly, but I loved you all dearly and I had so much fun. You taught me a lot, and I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for you. I also thank you for setting me free, and I thank you for being a part of my journey. I know it wasn't always easy and it wasn't always a joyride, but I tried to look at all of the good things that we all got from it, because there's so much beauty and love, and I think that's why we're so angry sometimes at our exes, because we're mad it's not there anymore. We're mad that we're missing out on this thing that was so good, and that's why the pain hits so hard. The level of pain is reflecting how good it was. It's only going to hurt a lot when you experience something great, and that's where we get so angry. And that's also why we need to change the narrative and start looking at all of the freaking good things, because that weighs so much heavier and it's so much better, because there are all going to be so many beautiful things that came from a relationship, and we cannot take that for granted. So when you're angry at yourself because you feel stagnant, or you feel weak, or you feel fragile, and you feel vulnerable, and it's painful, and you're scared, just remind yourself that you are worthy of what you want, and you are so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. Chase that sense of accomplishment. Be brave, and know that this too shall pass, because it always does, and it always gets better. That's the promise. It always gets better. Oh my goodness, I am rambling on part two even. Alrighty, I'm gonna stop now, but thank you all so much for your time. I am so grateful that you're listening, and as always, stay curious and get to know yourself better. If you want to come share your version of how your attachment style manifested itself in your love life, please email me on magsmindset@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear from you.